um, Rinpoches, Lamas, and dear friends. I think it was about 2 years ago when I was here. I met some of the members of Berotsana translation group and asked me whether I would come and join this conference. I was very enthusiastic about it because I think translation is extremely important area of establishing Buddhism not only in the West but all over the world, as English language is an international language. And I find that lots of Tibetans, young Tibetans, who are not very interested usually to learn about Buddhism, become very interested after reading books in English on Buddhism. Actually, I thought, I don't really consider myself as a translator, but I did enough translation to know how difficult it is. So therefore, I very much appreciate the works that all of you have been doing last so many years. When I was young, I was maybe among the first Tibetan Lamas who studied English. And in 60s and even 70s, when I used to read books written in English on Tibet and also on Tibetan Buddhism, every time I read something, I was becoming sad. Because, there was always something that was not right, not true, not correct somehow. And it was very difficult even to say it was not correct. Because sometimes, I was in India working in university and sometimes used to go to the conferences. And then, everybody would, whoever is presenting a paper is presenting a paper based on those books. And when I say, this is not really correct, he say, what are you talking about? You are just a child. This is said in 50 research books. Okay. And since, last 20 years, every year, it has been improving. The translation work in English has been improving so much that now it's a pleasure to read them. It's even sometimes easier to understand in English, even for me, who is a native Tibetan speaker, and supposed to be quite educated in Tibetan language, I sometimes find it easier to understand in English than in Tibetan. So therefore, I really think you have done a really great job. So actually my first duty and first thing I want to do is to congratulate you and really express my gratitude and thank you. for all the translators who have been working on this. And as you know, as Jiga Khandro Rinpoche mentioned yesterday, all of you became translators with lots of dedication, with really good motivation, I think, because everybody knew right from the beginning that we are not going to become millionaires by becoming Tibetan translators. So therefore, you did it because you saw that it is important to understand the Dharma and important to transmit, to bring this message to the people, in not only in the West but all over the world. And towards that end, the most, important thing, I think, is that the Tibetans, especially Tibetan Lamas, have a great responsibility, to help you in this, to really, work hand in hand with you. And so therefore, when I came here first time also, every time I said that, my only qualification is that I know a little bit of Tibetan, and I can more or less understand a little bit of English, I cannot translate myself very well, but I can criticize. Last year we were doing this translation of the Gaju Malam text into English, and we had a very great translator. I think he's not here. He's Lama Jessie Jamso. Is such a wonderful translator, so quick. Before I arrived, he had finished half the book. And he said, would you like to do some translation? Or I finish it and then you kind of read through it. I said, please, you finish it. I will read. So the only thing I did was give him trouble. Till he became like almost, But I think it is important, it's good to, I think we enjoyed it, We enjoyed the discussions, we enjoy, we don't need to debate. I don't know whether you call it debate or not. I think debate, if both sides is really open and willing to listen, willing to learn, then I think debate is a good idea. Otherwise, not so much. Because many people take things very personally if somebody says, little bit not so right, but, things. But that's not my point here. So therefore, the second point that I thought, that I would bring here is that I hope I'm speaking for all the Tibetan Lamas, but at least from my side, I am fully, and all my time is for you. If there is anything that I can help you with my, native Tibetan, birth, although, some of you who have been translating and studying for a long time are so well-read and so highly educated that I'm very often completely, astonished how much, you know. So therefore, maybe there is not much that you need from us, but I think, sometimes it is little things, I know many translators. When they are translating the very complicated, very, deep and, intricate philosophies, they go like, they flow like river, they have no problem. When the Lama starts to tell a short story, they completely flip, So sometimes, in certain places, maybe you need the help of a Tibetan, especially if you don't understand this story. I am the one. Because I've read all the stories. I worked on children's literature in Tibetan language for 8 years. And for 8 long years, I had nothing to do but read children's books in a children's library and collecting folk tales from people village to village. So I know all these stories. Don't make me start telling stories. Otherwise, I will never finish it. So therefore, this is the second reason I came here, to offer my service in whatever way I can. And I think most of the Tibetans would be willing to do that. And here, of course, Allah Zenker Rinpoche is here, who I don't think anybody will argue with me that he is one of the most learned Tibetan on earth at this point of the time. And Khandro Rinpoche is similarly learned, and you know how much translation work he has done. And I'm sure there are lots of people who would be very happy to help you. And then the third, which for me is the most important, is that I came here is to know you, to meet people, to meet the translators, who've been doing such a wonderful work. And therefore, I think, I don't know how to do it. I don't know whether it's happening or not, but I think we have to try to find a way to work together. I think if we can work together, it will be much better and much useful. And I think one thing also very important is that we think about the future translators. The translators who are here are really dedicated, have done lots of good work, and it should not be that the future ones become worse, but better. So towards that end, I hope and I wish that this conference will bring some concrete proposals and some concrete, agreements, so that, it will become something really useful. Of course, just to meet each other and come to know each other itself is, I think, is a good purpose. But on top of that, if we find a way, agreeable way to work together, I think that will make it even more useful and beneficial. I don't want to take any more time, so thank you very much.